Welcome back to another edition of Guns 101, our video welcome message for new gun owners, brought to you by the Self-Defense Radio Network. I'm Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories. My partner, the one you can see, she's Amanda Suffolk from Eye on the Target Radio. My invisible partner behind the camera, that's Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. We're joined again by Chris Cerino. He's a law enforcement officer and a senior firearms instructor at the Chris Cerino Training Group. Chris, millions of people brought a gun home, a lot of them first-time gun owners. Now they're in quarantine. They didn't get a chance to get in classes yet. Let's talk to them about the fundamentals, the very basics. A friend takes them out. I'm thinking they got to meet grips, sights, and trigger.
The nail on the head, Rob. If I have any time with a new shooter, the three things I want to cover are grip, sights, and trigger. I don't even have to get into holster work unless that's where they're going to go next. If they're going to go to another class where they need to be able to use a holster, it can be just from a pickup, grabbing a gun off a table, picking it up, getting a good solid grip on it. A good solid grip does a lot to compensate for a piss poor trigger pull. So if we can hold the gun correctly, but we're not very good at pressing the trigger, we're going to have better luck. If we understand what we need to see when the gun goes off, which is the sights with the target behind them, not the target on top of them, unless it's a bullseye gun, which most over-the-counter guns are not sighted like that. It's point of aim, point of impact, meaning that when the sights are lined up, front sight through the window of the rear, you can see that with target beyond, the bullet's going to impact at or behind that front sight, so very, very close to it. So when I go to the range, those are three things that I like to cover. And fortunately, there's a lot of good YouTube stuff out there about grip, modern grip, a high thumbs forward grip. Sight alignment. I lump sight alignment and sight picture together because one is no good without the other. So in the list of fundamentals, there's sight alignment, sight picture, trigger press. I call it trigger management because depending on the gun I'm shooting, I manage the trigger differently. And it's, anything from my daddy says, just use the tip of your finger to digging as deep as my first knuckle and firing off, different triggers. What do you think, Rob? What do you think, Amanda?
Well, let's start with the grips. When you say there's the videos of a good, solid thumbs forward grip, you want a good high grip, and you want to pick that gun up from wherever the same way every time. So how do you get an instructor? How do you get a student to practice that? Because it seems basic and it seems boring, but it is absolutely critical. So how do you do that?
Well, I don't have a pistol with me here, but you want to be high into the back strap, the tang on the gun, the rear part where your back of your hand comes, and you want to be tight to the trigger guard so that you've got that high to the gun. And I tell people it's like high thumbs forward doesn't mean high thumbs forward. It means high to the axis of recoil or where the momentum is, where the gun's barrel is. So I want to be high on the gun. And I set my thumbs forward so that I'm using muscular and skeletal alignment so that I don't have a bunch of whip. I was shooting a match yesterday, and there was a young boy there, and he was shooting, and he kept having malfunctions. But, boy, he was holding that gun really low, and he had this hand down here, and that gun was just whipping around. So it was getting stovepipes and failures to fully eject. And it wasn't until the very end I finally said, listen, man, you need to work on how you hold that gun. That's why your gun's not working correctly. And I felt bad, but I didn't want to say anything during the match. But if you hold the gun correctly, using proper muscular and skeletal alignment, what you'll find is that recoil management is much simpler. You can manage the recoil of the gun without having to fight it, because not everybody is as strong as me. My wife shoots exactly the same way. She holds the gun the same way. She's not nearly as strong as me, but she shoots as well as me. So it's muscular skeletal alignment, not strength.
That
Chris,
makes sense.
for some new gun owners, and you've seen it, you put the gun in their hand, and the way they grab it, they're not holding it in front of them. They're holding it away from them because it's still intimidating, and they need a firearms owner, a shooter, to model what this looks like. The closest thing that they have for that is what they see on TV.
Well,
I know we want them to shoot.
About that.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that. Even people that have no idea what they're doing. I just had a class, 2 days ago, and some of them were very, very brand new. And they hold the gun just like they hold it on TV. They see stuff on TV, so they hold it just like that. And I ask them, I say, listen, how many of you guys know how to use a hammer? They say, I know how to use a hammer. I said, if you're driving a framing nail, how do you hold the hammer? They said, well, way at the end, because we want all the momentum of the hammer, and by golly, it works. I mean, you can drive a nail very quickly. I said, well, what I'm going to teach you is how to hold a gun so that it works for you. I mean, after all, we hold the hammer the certain way so that it works for us. Why wouldn't we hold the gun the right way so that it works for us? I mean, you could do anything and shoot a round. You can shoot tin cans in your backyard any day, but if you want to deliver accurate fire in a quick fashion, we use a modern high thumbs forward grip.
Okay, so that's what they're going to Google it. They're going to look for it, but it's a high thumbs forward grip is what they're going to be looking for, and then it can be demonstrated. So now let's talk about sight picture. When you're talking about the sights, this is another thing that they can Google, and it's going to show them the front sight, it's going to show them the back sight, and it's going to show them the target. So those are the things that they can take this video where you're talking about it. They can go to another, they can Google it, they can look at the pictures and go, okay, this makes sense to me. But that's the another piece of this where they need to know what their sight picture needs to look like from their front sight, their back sight, and where the target position is. But
and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll say is this: you have to worry about what you're doing, not how you're doing. So while you're shooting, you have to worry about seeing the sights, equal and even spacing, level across the top, equal spacing, even across the top with a target beyond. You can't control anything after the bullet leaves the barrel, but everybody wants to look over the gun. If I'm aiming at your face down there, they want to do this. And then they all complain that my gun shoots low. But, you have to see the sights. You got to stay with the sights when the gun goes off, and then you'll know how you did. You'll know where your bullet went, and you can call your shot. Last is trigger. What do you think about that?
There's people call it trigger pull, they call it trigger press, they call it trigger squeeze. What are they doing?
Well, I don't use the word squeeze because usually that means somebody's using their whole hand to fire the gun. Mm-hmm. I like to say trigger press, and actually I just call it trigger management because I shoot a 1911 style pistol different than I shoot a revolver. I shoot a double single gun different than a double action, single action type pistol, different than I shoot an AR-15. I shoot an AR-15 different with a mil-spec trigger than I shoot with a fancy Timney trigger in it. And all I'll say about a trigger is you press the trigger so that the sights don't move and the sight picture doesn't change when the hammer falls. If it doesn't work that way, change your trigger finger placement and figure out how to do it, because one trigger finger placement does not fit all.
It does not. That's good advice. Chris Cerino, ChrisCerinoTrainingGroup.com. He's an instructor, amongst all the other stuff, and he is a Top Shot star. I just want you to know, just in case you didn't recognize that face. But so Chris Cerino Training Group, he travels across the country teaching. So check out where his schedule is. Once this whole Corona thing stops, he is going to be in your neighborhood, and you're going to want to take that class. So Chris, thanks a lot.
Thank you.